'Tis I. Hey everyone, glad to see you back, glad to see you looking fresh, and today is the day I talk about my favorite films of 2024. Seems crazy to me that we're at the end of not only the year, but the end of the best of lists of the year. This is the third list I do every year. I talk about my favorites of the year, start with anime, then games, then movies, and there are 20 films here I'm talking about today. So I won't be going into crazy long depth on all of them because I'll be here for a long time if I do that. So brief summaries on why I loved each of these movies, and I hope you enjoy this list. If you do, I would really appreciate letting me know, dropping a like, dropping a subscribe if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. Technically the beginning of the year when this video will be coming out, but starting off a new year on the right foot, talking about the greatness that just left us. And so here are my 20 favorite films of 2024. Starting, of course, with
Number 20.
The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is a movie that should work for me, right? I'm a guy, a very guy-like movie. I like a lot of people in it. I like a lot of people behind the camera with it. And it's just a fun World War II movie. Has that Guy Ritchie flavor. And you tie Guy Ritchie up, you put him with some Henry Cavill. I really like that combination. I really like Man from Uncle that came out a good while ago now, almost a decade ago now, holy crap. And this is another great combination team up between the two of them. And it kind of got lost in the shuffle. It came out early in the year. It took me a while to get around to see it. But I had fun with it. It's a pretty good dad movie too. I think dads will like it. So maybe show it to your dad. I think he'd enjoy this movie.
Number 19.
Inside Out 2 is, of course, the sequel to Inside Out, and a film that I didn't think I'd enjoy as much as I did. I think everyone kind of thought that going in. They're like, yeah, okay, Inside Out is an incredible film, again, almost a decade old at this point, that we all fell in love with back in 2015, and we all been holding close to our hearts since then. One of Pixar's last moments of greatness. They've had good stuff since then. What am I talking about? But one of their greatest films is Inside Out, and Inside Out 2 comes out, and we're like, it's gonna get hit with the sequel bug again. It's gonna be a Finding Nemo 2 or an Incredibles 2, where it's good, but it's not that good. Pretty good, pretty great. They really do what they wanted to do with the characters, and they added some wonderful new characters that really added a lot to this world, and the jokes about it were phenomenal. And it's just a great, brilliant depiction on emotions, just like the first one is, but this time with a preteen instead of just a kid. So it can do a lot more, can do a lot more emotions, a more complex story, and I think it's quite well done. Not as well as the first one, but pretty dang good.
Number 18.
The Substance it's been a really good year for body horror. If you're a fan of body horror, The Substance might be the finest body horror of the year. Other horrors I have higher do other horrors other than just body horror, but if you're into that, if that's your flavor of scare that you're into, you probably have already seen Substance. But if you haven't, pure recommendation to you. It's a very on the nose story about a Hollywood star that kind of gets tossed by the wayside, forgotten about, and played by Demi Moore, who, in real life, she's a huge star, hasn't really done a lot recently, so perfect role for her, and I thought the movie was great. I think it's a little bit lower on my list than it is for others. It was sold to me as like, this is the best movie of the year, you gotta see it. And so, I went in with high expectations, which, a lot of the time, I can say, like, oh, you shouldn't go in with expectations, but, like, everyone does. You can go in as baseline as you want to, but preconceived notions and pure expectations, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen no matter what. So I walked in to this being like, it's gonna be great. And it's great. It's just not like the, holy crap, everyone needs to see this that I was kind of sold on. But maybe you'll think that. A lot of people think it's better than what I think it is, so definitely, like I said, if you like the body horror stuff, if you want to see Demi more, then go check it out. It is really, really good.
Number 17.
Horizon Part 1. I'm not going to get any of the nonsense about why we haven't seen Part 2 yet, because that can be a whole nother topic for another video. But as it stands, This is a great 3-hour-long intro to what should be a Western epic tale that is going to be told over multiple parts. When will we see part 2? I don't know. We should have saw it in August, but, you know, it does feel like a great episode of television more than a movie. But like a 3-hour long episode of television, that's a movie, you know? So it's a great Western, and we don't see many Westerns, period, anymore. But have a great one of those is great. I mean, what more can you say about that? It's big in scale. There are a ton of characters. The music's great. The cinematography is astounding. It does everything a Western kind of needs to do in a wonderful, like, old school kind of fashion. It knows its genre well, and it is hitting its mark.
Number 16.
Twisters really blew me away. And just simply put, and I don't even like this phrase anymore. I think it's kind of been ruined by a lot of people. It's just a fun time at the movies is pretty much how I feel about this one, though. I can say that about a lot of movies, but it doesn't say much of anything other than you went and you had fun. But Twisters is a sequel, I guess, to Twister. It's a sequel in name alone. It has next to no, like, callbacks. It has a couple, like the Dorothy thing, but that's it. And other than that, there's nothing else latching this to the first one. It's its own tale, has some wonderful new up-and-coming actors, which I've heard people describe this movie as there's no way this cast can compare to the cast of the first one. Well, the cast of the first one really grew into themselves as years gone by. I personally believe the cast of this movie definitely has the potential to grow into the same power stardom that the first one did. So, let's not write the movie off. The movie's been out for half a year, and the original one's been out since the 90s, so let's give them 30 years to prove themselves. I mean, one of them has already been cast in Superman. One of them is Glenn Powell, and one of them started Hamilton. Like, this cast is already, like, starting to get sparks as a fire is about to happen here. I can really feel it.
Number 15.
Challengers is the most, I don't know, artsy movie, I guess? Maybe not. It's kind of artsy. It's kind of cool that an artsy movie like this kind of hit mainstream. People were talking about it. Friends I knew went and saw it. So, good. It's a good movie. It's a great movie. Best sports movie of the year? I read a review on Letterboxd. I'll paraphrase, I don't remember the exact wording, that perfectly cemented what this movie is, and that everything in life is tennis, except tennis, which is sex. And I was like, what an interesting way to say that. That was before I saw the movie. And then I saw the movie, and I was like, yep, that's exactly what that movie is trying to say. So if that seems interesting to you, if you like tennis, I promise you don't like tennis as much as these guys, but it's good. Tennis seems pretty good all of a sudden.
Number 14.
Wicked. Me and Wicked, I don't know what it's been for the last month and a half since Wicked came out. I feel like a hater on Wicked. It's number 14 here on my list, right? I feel like I disliked it. It's on the best of the year list. I rated it lower than I think a lot of people did, but the people I've talked to in person seem to echo my sentiment a lot of the time. Some of them are surpass me. I'm not saying they're not. Some of them agree with me, though. I feel like the film is too long, it drags its belly in the middle, but I would absolutely be lying if I wasn't whisked up in the whimsy and the wonderful music and the stage setting, design, whatever you want to say. The characters, the actresses, everyone does a wonderful job in this, and I'm excited to see the second half, because I didn't know hardly anything about this one. I knew the song Popular, I knew the song Defying Gravity, and that all has been expunged, so I don't know what's going to happen now. I assume Dorothy will show up, but I don't know. So we'll see what happens in about a year. Maybe I'll like the second part more. I heard that the second part has a fall off in the stage play, so I don't know.
Number 13.
Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire is pure movie for me. It's big monsters, and it's big scales, and it's monster on monsters, and it's monster teaming up, and it's new titans, and it's new powers, and it's new power-ups, and it's just fun. It's just the perfect level of Dan fun where it's not so stupid like Godzilla Kong is that I'm going to rate it lower. But it's also not like the level of high art that Godzilla -1 would be to amplify it to number 1. It's like one of the best silly Godzilla movies. And I, as a Godzilla fan, will always be there for it. It's one of the better Kong movies, not the best Kong movie, but it's one of the better Kong movies too. And I'm gonna be there all the time for more Godzilla on the big screen, because I love it.
Number 12.
Fall Guy. Now, this movie was a bit of a weird one at first. I watched it, my folks, because they liked this show back in the 70s or whatever, and I can almost guarantee that this movie ties in with name alone and like one cameo, and that's it. My dad did not like this movie. My mom did not like it at the beginning. And I was like, just stay with it. All of a sudden, that scene on the truck, and the crazy stunt work in this, I think, started to win him over. Because it started to win me over like immediately. This movie runs on the rule of cool. Does it look cool? Yeah. Then let's do it. And this movie's pretty dang cool. I really liked it. The more it went along, the more it was winning me over, and the more fun I was having. It's a great litmus test, this movie, because I have constantly said story in a film is one of the least important things to me. How it looks, how it's acted, how it sounds are all much more important. And so this movie does not have a very smart plot. It's actually pretty silly, and it's convoluted, and it's dumb. But it didn't matter to me. It was low down. Well, obviously, I took notice, but it's just the way the rest of the stuff was executed that it makes it great. So it's a great test for something like that. So if you are a story person, this is not going to be for you. But if you like crazy good stunt work, if you like fun action, then this one could very well be for you. Also, I want to side note that this film and Godzilla Kong, I didn't mean to put them next together because of this, they both have the Kiss song, I Was Made for Loving You, which is a fun little like resurgence of that tune. So, cool on both of them for that.
Number 11.
Speaking of music, Piece by Piece was at one point the highest documentary on the list. It's cool that this movie exists in the way it does, right? Just on paper, it's a Lego movie, documentary about Pharrell Williams, a artist who, I'll be honest, not a huge fan of. And not that I don't dislike the guy, I just didn't really like pass me with music before this. So I go in just wanting to see a Lego movie, and I got that with, of course, the incredibly imaginative, beautiful Lego imagery that we've come to expect from a Lego movie, which we haven't seen on screen since 2019. So I'm hoping that this kind of moves things forward, but it didn't do well in the box office, so maybe not. I don't know. But it was fun just seeing that alone. Pharrell Williams' story was more interesting than I thought it would be, especially since it's a documentary. I was kind of expecting it was going to be a little bit bored in that aspect, but it was pretty good. It was interesting to see like all the cameos and all the people they brought in that Pharrell Williams' life had touched in some way, in some interesting path that I didn't expect. I didn't know some of the stuff he had worked on, so just cool. It's just a fun movie that was a very bright and colorful thing to see in theaters, and I hope more people see it, because not enough people did.
Number 10.
Speaking of that, not enough people saw Zero number 2, and that is absolutely Warner Brothers' fault, which I can rip on Warner Brothers for a while, but they've had good movies come out this year, so it's sometimes hard to just not to let it go. But whatever. Zero number 2, after a 20-minute release in theaters, came out on HBO Max right before Christmas, and so every year, kind of become a tradition at this point to watch a new movie on Christmas night after everything. So that was this year's. It was great. I didn't know Clint Eastwood had something like this left in him. It was riveting. It had my heart going at times. I was locked in. I was laser focused into this movie. It is a story about a court case, and juror number 2, the titular guy, is tied up into the case in a way that is so intriguing because you don't know if he actually had a part in the crime that was being talked about. And so it has this really awesome way of being a courtroom drama, but also this intense thriller of like, did they do it? Did they not do it? What actually happened? Are they going to get away with it if they did? But if they're going to get in trouble if they didn't? And it's so good. It's so good. And like I said, I didn't know Clint Eastwood had something with this much energy left in him. And as I say, every time I see a Clint Eastwood movie, this may be the last time I get to see a Clint Eastwood movie. But if it is, it's a great way to end a career.
Number 9.
Alien Romulus is the best Alien movie since Aliens. And I like Prometheus, actually. But since Aliens, for sure. I don't think a lot of people are going to disagree with that. This is another good body horror. If you like body horror, this is going to be for you. And it is basically a greatest hits compilation of the other Alien movies, which, give and take, you may not like. I liked a lot. Because it's not like overt, like, this here is this and this is this. Some people complain that it was, but it's not. People like to complain about Easter eggs sometimes, but it does have very clear, like, that's from this movie, that's from this movie. If you've seen the other one, but if you haven't, it's not like you're missing out on anything. It is one of the scariest movies I saw this year. It's on IMAX, and it was well worth that because some of the cinematography is gorgeous. Some of the looks in space, an Alien movie has never quite looked so wonderful in the way the space looks, and the xenomorphs and the chest bursters, and specifically the face huggers, never quite been as scary. I've never been as scared of a face hugger than in this movie. And like I said, the chest bursters too have a lot of play, and of course the xenomorphs have always been scary, but they're scary in this one too. I've never been scared of them before until this movie, so I think that's a really good positive note for this one, that it's the scariest that one of these things have ever looked.
Number 8.
Smile 2, though, just edges it out because it is the scariest movie I saw this year. And there were parts of this movie where I was physically shaking seeing it in the theater, which is a huge positive for a horror film. I've heard some people say it's a little long, and by the end of it, I was ready to leave the theater. But I was so engaged and I was so immersed in what they were doing here that part of me didn't want it to end, and I really wanted to see how it was going to end, and it twists and it turns, and the ending may lose some people, but it had me the whole way. Plus, I got to see Naomi Scott again, who's an actress that I haven't seen in quite some time. I don't think since Charlie's Angels. Yeah, that came out in 2019. Also, Aladdin came out in 2019. So I thought she was going to pop off, but then she kind of disappeared. But anyway, she's great in this. She's one of the best performances of the year, for sure. And then she has some music in it. She's a pop star in the movie. And she sings some songs, and I've listened to the songs on my own time on Spotify, and I think they're great too. So, just an overall great movie. If you like horror films, it's my favorite horror movie of the year. So, I assume you've already seen it, but it's also a remarkable improvement on the first one. I didn't really like the first Smile that much, and this one is a huge improvement. I don't know if I like Smile 3 as much. I like that they're kind of just going on different stories. It is tied in, but it's not a direct, like, here's the next part of this guy's chapter. Like, it's new tales in the same world, which I think is always a fun way to do a horror movie series.
Number 7.
Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim is a film that's on paper built for me. It's like, you like Lord of the Rings? Yes. You like anime? Yes. You're gonna like this. And they were right. I liked both of those things quite a bit. So I was built to watch something like this. It's not as long as other Lord of the Rings movies, but I expected it to be long like the other Lord of the Rings movies, so I'm fine with how the pacing was and how long I had to sit in my seat in theaters. I also love anime on the big screen. Any chance I get to see an anime film on the big screen, I try to take the opportunity to go see it, and this one was no exception. That being said, it's a very hard film to recommend to people because they either are like very adverse to seeing a 2.5 hour long fantasy film, or they're averse to seeing an anime film, or both. So it's hard to recommend. I can see why it didn't perform very well. I think it's great though. I think I rate it higher than other people. I'm very excited to see it again. I'm very excited to get it on disc and put alongside the other ones, because I think it doesn't stand up as tall as the other ones, because not many films do. So comparing it in that way is never going to be fair. but I still think it's a wonderful movie, and I absolutely enjoy my time with it.
Number 6.
Saturday Night. I didn't think a movie like this would infect my brain as much as it did watching it. I knew I liked it as I was watching. I'm like, this movie is great. I saw it by myself, too, which is always an interesting thing in the theater by yourself. So I was laughing to myself. I was kind of chatting with myself about what was working, what wasn't working. But not many stuff wasn't working. And I was just astounded about how good the cast is in comparison to... We have direct footage of what the people are and were and how they acted way back in the 70s. So to see a film now and see these up-and-comers act so close to that is incredible to see. It's another cast, much like Twisters, where I can see so many of these up-and-comers be massive stars in the years to come. I got lost in just seeing cast interviews and press junkets, and I don't do that with a lot of movies. So this movie just kind of lived in my brain for months after I saw it. And it slowly climbed its way up. Like, I knew it was going to be on the best of the year list after I saw it, but I didn't think it was going to be this high. And I am pretty excited to have it this high, because it is just that good. I recommend it to a good number of people. I think it's a lot of fun. I think if you liked SNL, I think if you like comedy in the 70s as well, you'll find a lot to love here. And to me, it is one of the best of the year, for sure.
Number 5.
Furiosa! Should have done better in the box office. I love Fury Road, like a lot of people. So I was, of course, going to go see this on the biggest screen I could. And I loved it. I don't love it as much as Fury Road. It's kind of how this year's been. It's not as good as something that came before, but it's pretty dang good. It can stand up pretty close to what something else had done. This is the last film that does that. The last 4 are better or than stuff that came before it. This will always get compared to Mad Max Fury Road. It's a very different kind of movie than Fury Road is. Of course, it has the same kind of aesthetics that Fury Road does. And some of the discussions about this movie have been so funny to me, because people will say, like, oh, this movie has too much CGI. And the CGI is more noticeable than in Fury Road. But they'll always claim that Fury Road had no CGI, which is just not true. And so they'll put it up on a higher pedestal because of no CGI, when it's just more visible than in Furiosa. Which is a knock against it. I'm not saying it's not, but Furiosa is still a great wasteland tale, and we do not see movies like this very often. We do not see movies of this kind of artistic vision, and the fact that George Miller could even do something like this, again, almost 10 years after we thought he was done, is worthy of celebration in and of itself.
Number 4.
Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, is the best documentary I've seen in a long, long time. Maybe the best documentary I've ever seen. Of course, it's something that is very close to me. I love Superman as a character. I always have, and I always will. It means a lot to me. So seeing a documentary about the man that basically propelled him into pop stardom in the world of cinema is gonna speak directly to my interest to begin with. The story of Christopher Reeve, though, is a tale of hardship. It's a brutally hard thing to sit through at times. It is an emotional journey, and I cried a lot during it. Some people just claim it's there for emotional turmoil. It's a story worth hearing, and it's a story of triumph in face of adversity a lot of the time. And like I said, even though it's a hard watch, it is a very worthy one. It is one that I am happy exists in the way that it does. It's edited very well. The way the story plays is very well done. And I simply loved being able to hear the tale of a man who we all saw as untouchable ended up being kind of untouchable, right? He is just a man. So like, hearing him be portrayed as just a man, an extraordinary man, but just a man, it really, like, personified him in a way that made him also feel like much more again. I don't know how they will accomplish that. It's like taking a statue of something, and you always know it as a statue, and for some reason when you learn about what the statue, like, is as a person, it, like, also you can see the statue as a person, but now you see him as much more than what you did before, if that makes any sense. It's a fantastic documentary. Like I said, it's one of the best I've ever seen.
Number 3.
Deadpool and Wolverine. Y'all saw this coming. You know I like comic book films, and this is the only comic book film here. So, it's the best of the year by a long shot. Not a great year for comic book films. We also knew it was not gonna be, because what was the competition? Is Venom? I don't know. But seeing Wolverine come back was a big old question mark for the last couple years going into this film. We knew Deadpool was gonna work, but seeing Wolverine after the intensely emotional departure that was Logan show back up in cinemas, it was a big question mark as to why are we doing this? Can this work? Should we be doing this? And they do it well. They handle it well. They look at it dead in the face and they make fun of it immediately, and it works. And I've never seen a love letter to past films work so well as this one. It handles what came before it, the shoulders of what it's standing on, in such a truly heartfelt way. And you could feel the love so much throughout all of this movie. You can really, really, really tell that the team behind this saw the Fox X-Men Fantastic Four universe and loved it. And knew that without that, we wouldn't be here. That's the heart of this movie. So, when I talk to people about this movie, and they don't like it as much as me, but they also don't have the emotional attachment to those movies that I do, I can understand why. And this movie is an amazing, like, telltale of, like, how much do you like that stuff? And if you like that stuff, you like this more. And this movie, more than a lot of other movies, is very much for the fans in a great way. This isn't a bad movie if you have never seen any other stuff. You'd just be missing out on a lot of what's underneath the surface, you know? Like, if you just like comics, you came into this, yeah, you get to see some awesome cameos of characters that you like. And if you don't know who they are, you just get to see, like, cool characters that introduce themselves. You get to hear what they can do, and it's just a lot of fun. But if you do have that previous knowledge, it is immensely rewarding and is emotionally satisfying in a way that not a lot of movies can do. But somehow, some like comic book films keep winning me over, and this is one of the best of the MCU, for sure.
Number 2.
Dune 2. Of course, this is going to be on everyone's list. Dune was just an epic of a film that we needed to see back when it came out, and this sequel, which should have came out last year, but is now here this year, is so good. Man, is it good. It is over 2.5 hours, I believe, and it whooshes by. I remember being in the theater and being like, how long have I been in this movie? And I looked down at 2 hours, and I was like, you could have told me I'd been here for half an hour, I would have believed you. This film cooks, and there's so much in it, and there's such a grand scale, and it paints this whole world of Arrakis and other worlds as well in this movie that are so beautiful and so realized, and they feel so real. And it's been a long time since seeing a movie that feels this big and important to the world of pop culture, and it's just wow, you know? And it's a good year. If you like sand, it's a good year for you. Sandworms are sick in this movie. Sandworms are sick in the first one. They are so cool in this one. And I cannot wait to see what they do with the third one. I don't know anything about the story at all, so I even held off on watching the 80s Dune so I wouldn't get spoiled for this one, and I'm glad I did, because the whole sandworm thing would have been spoiled. But yeah, this movie's awesome, and it was the best movie of the year for a while, until I saw
Number 1.
The Wild Robot, which is the first time an animated film has been my number 1. Spider-Verse has gotten close a couple times, but this is the first time an animated film has very much been the best film I saw in a year. DreamWorks has been kind of killing it lately. They've been kind of doing really good and doing better than Disney a lot of the time, which is kind of cool to see. And this film just hit me right when it needed to. It found me when I was feeling a little lost, feeling a little down on myself. And it was a warm hug. And it looked at me and it was like, Dan, you're going to be okay. You've worked hard. You've done a lot. You've worked and you struggled and you're doing better than you were. So why are you feeling down on yourself now? Like, look where you're going. You're going to get there. You have friends behind you. You have a community of people that love you. You're doing great. And it just melted my heart. And it was everything I needed to hear, and it was done in the perfect way, and it just works on every level. And it does more than just works, it excels at everything it's trying to do. On paper, this movie should just be fine. It should just be another children's thing, right? It should be another kids movie, another whatever animated kids movie. But this film is beauty, and it is grace, and it is immaculate. It's phenomenal, it's beautiful, it's smart, it's brilliant, it's near perfect at taking such a simple tale as this robot is dropped in a forest and adopts a baby goose and learns how to raise a child, and the child needs to learn how to love the people around it, and the child needs to learn how to work hard and to attain his goals. And it's a simple story, right? If you work hard, you can obtain your goals, or, you know, it's okay to leave the nest someday, or, you know, you'll always have a home here. There's a lot of very simple messaging told to the highest of calibers, and I simply loved it. Also, just the look of this thing, the whole idea of every frame's a painting, this entire movie, there was just moments I was just in awe of the beauty laid up front of me on the silver screen. And I was like, aren't movies awesome? And they are. They're pretty awesome, aren't they? And on that note, that will wrap up my 20 favorite films of 2024. What was your favorite film of 2024? Was it on this list? By all means, let me know down below. Thank you so very much for watching. As always, like this if you like this, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you at some point.